On the morning of May the 10th, 2015, an intrepid group of travelers left Lynchburg, Virginia on a bus bound for Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, we boarded a plane that whisked us across the sea, where we landed at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. There, we boarded another bus that took us to our first destination, Tel Aviv. But before we got to Tel Aviv, we stopped in the ancient city of Old Yafo. This is the place where Jonah departed on his famous voyage, home of St. Peter's Church, which, by the way, is a beautiful place for a wedding. After spending a little social time on the beach that evening in Tel Aviv and getting a good night's sleep, we drove up the coast to Haifa on the next full day of our travel. Our first stop was Caesarea, where we saw Herod's palace, complete with hippodrome and an amphitheater. Moving on, we saw ancient Roman aqueducts. While winding our way from Caesarea to Haifa, we also stopped in Sapori to look at some magnificent ancient mosaics. This was also a chance for us to sample some new Israeli foods, some strange to us and others not quite so strange. Ultimately, we did make it to Haifa, where we saw the Baha'i Temple and we took in grand panoramic views of the harbor. Leaving Haifa the next morning, we went to Old Akko, where we saw the Mandate-era British fortress that held Jewish prisoners during the War of Independence and where unfortunately several had been executed. We also had the chance to see a Crusader fortress. We left Akko heading east towards the Golan, where we had the opportunity to get a first glimpse of the beautiful Jezreel Valley. And that evening we entered the magical city of Sfat. I won't say that we hadn't had a chance for a drink or two before this time, but now the time had arrived for a more formal introduction to both wine making and wine tasting in the Golan. With a little wine in our bellies, it was time to head to the Golan Heights, and we quickly found ourselves closer to Damascus than to Jerusalem. We toured the bunkers at Har Ben Tal and imagined what it must have been like to defend these hills against the 1973 attack from Syria. To this day, UN observers use this post to overlook what happens in Syria, and Israeli soldiers are on constant guard. But these hills also echo with much more ancient history, as shown by this temple to the god Pan, a place that many believe was also the entrance to hell itself. The headwaters of the Jordan River rushed wildly as we walked up through Tel Dan to see the site where, during the divided kingdom, the Israelites in the northern kingdom sacrificed to a golden calf. This is also where we saw the most ancient ruin on our trip, Abraham's Gate in an old Canaanite city. And back we went for another evening in Sfat for excellent shopping and wonderful company. We spent our last day in the north touring around Yam Kinneret. First at the Church of the Beatitudes, then on to Capernaum, followed by a stop at the Church of the Multiplication and an opportunity to put our feet in the Sea of Galilee. When we got to the Church of the Annunciation, we realized that we needed to be a little bit more modest, so a couple of our members had to put on skirts. By this time of day, Shabbos was fast approaching, so we needed to make it down to Jerusalem before the sun set. We said a brief prayer of thanksgiving on our safe arrival, and then we headed to our Jerusalem hotel. Shabbat services that evening were spiritually uplifting, and we spent the next few days touring Jerusalem, both the Old City and the New. realities of modern living in this ancient city are complex, and diverse populations mix in interesting ways. Many of us learned for the first time how to use a Shabbos elevator, and we all marveled at excavations, churches, and fortresses. Our somber and sobering visit to Yad Vashem culminated with the presentation of a new book to the official Yad Vashem library. And then it was on to Har Herzl and the official military cemetery in Jerusalem. On the way back into town, we stopped at the Machne Yehuda market, where you can buy just about anything your heart might desire. But the market was a little less populated than normal because today was Yom Yerushalayim, the celebration of the reunification of the city of Jerusalem in 1967. This patriotic festival packed the streets, and it was exhilarating to walk through the crowds. But as jubilant as the festival was, we also took the time to meet with a representative from the Parents Circle, a group of Arabs and Jews who come together to overcome their own personal loss and continue to work towards peace. And to peace, we can all toast L'chaim. Our group did split one morning, with half the group going to the Garden of Gethsemane and the other half of the group wading through the waters in Hezekiah's tunnel. For those who want to pray in Jerusalem, there is always ample opportunity. After several densely packed days of touring Jerusalem, it was time to leave this holy city behind and head toward another. On our way to Bethlehem, we got our first up-close look at the barrier fence. We entered the Church of the Nativity, and we crowded our way down into the manger. The political situation in the occupied territories is complex, and in order to understand the nuances better, we visited the Gush Etzion block, passing the lone oak tree and moving on to Efrat. We had a wonderful lunch at another winery, and then we met with the mayor of the settlement town of Efrat.
It's a traditional gift from Virginia. It's a special kind of cup that comes from Thomas Jefferson. And so I hope you'll accept this from one mayor to another as a gift from Lynchburg, Virginia. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For many of us, the highlight of the day was accepting home hospitality from our good friend Osnat.
already maybe have, but I got you you know that Osnat's dad is a pediatrician, so I got him what is one of my favorite books on medical ethics and Jewish law. Okay? So,
thank you so
thank you very, very much. And for Osnat, רציתי לקנות משהו מיוחד לך, כן? משהו שאת לא יכולה לקנות בישראל. Okay, I wanted to buy her something special that I knew she could not get anywhere in Israel.
And definitely the
Okay, because what she's now going to she has two of those. But she's going to be a trendsetter. So if you wanted, I checked, something that they probably don't sell in Israel that makes Osnat into a trendsetter, what might you think?
Virginia peanuts?
No. Vera Bradley.
Oh, very
I get that was your idea.
Vera Bradley is
I heard her say it.
very trendy.
He is a trendsetter.
To go to school for your books in there, okay?
Come here next year in a front, there'll be 150.
There'll be knockoffs.
That was perfect, yeah. That is perfect.
תודה רבה
Thank
לך.
you very much. Thanks for
אמא,
coming.
תודה.
We all piled into the bus again and headed south through the Judean hills into the desert. When we got out of the bus, we were hit squarely in the face with a hamsin, a hot desert wind. Fortunately, the heat broke during the night, and for those of us who chose to hike up Masada, the weather was slightly cooler. We had to hike fast, but we did make it to the top in time to see a hazy but beautiful sunrise. Those of us who made the hike were proud of our accomplishment, and we were rewarded with spectacular views. Our entire group was reunited once the cable cars were running, and we took the opportunity to tour this desolate outpost and learn what happened to the people who held this solitary fortress. After making some new friends at the top, we then took the cable car down and made some new friends down below.
I captioned it. He likes
Those are the always cautious eyes.
Now that's what I call a spa treatment. Maybe we can wash all that mud off with a good float. As hot as it was, there was still one more hike to take, into the oasis at En Gedi. This is the location where the then future King David was running from the then current King Saul. But not everyone wanted to keep walking. Some of us preferred to ride. No, we didn't take camels back to Tel Aviv. We got back on the bus. That's not an IV. I'm just charging my phone. Our last official stop was at the Hall of Independence, where in 1948 the modern state of Israel was declared. After a free afternoon in Tel Aviv, we gathered for our final farewell dinner of traditional Sephardic cooking. After another 18 hours of travel, we were back home in Lynchburg. We now have memories to last a lifetime and new friendships that certainly will.
Shalom, Chaverim, Shalom, Chaverim, Shalom.